Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition. His name is Zach Lyons. My name is Braden Gall. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Zach finally got his wish. It finally happened. It might have been a foregone conclusion in his mind.
It was a foregone conclusion. It should have been a foregone conclusion in everybody's mind if you think Mike Vrabel is a competent, elite football mind.
Which I think...
It's just my mind. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yes, and I would argue that most of you listeners who jump into the comments, rate, review, subscribe to the shows, listen to F Words Pod, of course, listen to all the other great stuff from across the 440 Sports Network as well. I think most of you all, because you listen to our shows, I would like to think are with us in being rational and intelligent football fans who believe that Mike Vrabel is pretty stinking good at his job, has made a bunch of staff changes since our last show on Monday. Of course, I know you guys talked about it on the Football and Other Efforts pod with Mike Herndon, but we're going to dive into a little bit more of that conversation. Who do we want to see? What philosophies do we want to see more importantly? Because I think right now the candidates are all out there in the ether, and nobody really knows who's being interviewed yet, and we'll get some of that information. We'll give you guys a big board update on the general manager. I know your number one top choice, Zach, the girl you wanted to go to the dance with all along. He's now off the board.
I figured he would be. I mean, he was the best hire, but obviously, and we said it on the podcast, I said it in tweets, I try to warn people, don't get your expectations too high, because he's probably, by the reaction by Reddit, the reaction is they're going to do everything in their power to keep Adam Peters in San Francisco.
Well, and as all good, rational human beings, we should take all of our advice from Reddit. Tim Dodge chiming in. How dare you assume that he is rational? You're right, Tim. You're an Auburn fan. Of course you're not rational. You decided to be an Auburn fan. What the hell's wrong with you? So we're
probably went to a game and saw the eagle fly down during the national anthem. He's like, oh, this is cool. I got to be an Auburn fan.
The Georgia Bulldogs are dominant national champions. We got the NFL playoffs coming up. And, of course, I got some way too early, never too early top 25 sort of SEC power rankings for you folks out there.
I don't know. You say it's never too early, but I also feel like this is doing a mock draft right after the draft.
Well, but here's the beauty of college football is because so much shit's going to change. Like, I can look at the rosters right now. Tim graduated from Auburn. What does that mean? Was that even count? Like, if you graduate from Auburn? Tim, I don't know why we're picking on you. We love you, Tim. There's so much that will change in college rosters, in who's going to be good or bad, coaching changes, transfer portal, recruiting, all this stuff. It's not going to change who's number one. But you can kind of do a power ranking of college football teams like almost every other month, and it might change. Like that's what's really fun about college football. So we'll take a way too early look a little bit later on. It's at the very end of the show, okay?
Hey, let me ask you a
non-offensive.
College football expert. What the fuck is C.J. Stroud and Quentin Johnston waiting on?
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you.
What if C.J. Stroud didn't come out? Wouldn't that be the stupidest move that he could make, unless that NIL money is worth what he's going to lose from? Because there's no way he's going to be better than Drake May and Caleb Williams, right? Next year.
I mean, he's probably on par with those guys, but he could be third and take him like sixth overall.
Second.
Yeah, instead of now I've seen him on some.
I find it so odd that he hasn't done it yet.
I don't think there's anything to that yet. Like, the deadline's not for a little while, I would assume.
Sounds like he's running from the grind. He knows that he's not going to be a good NFL quarterback, and he wants that NIL money.
So he's an 8-4 guy.
He's an 8-4 guy.
He's a blister, not a callus.
Not a callus.
That's what he is. I'll remind you of that commentary when they draft him. They trade up to number 3 and they draft him or whatever right behind the Texans.
I'll just remind everybody that means it's going to be a failure, and it will definitely not work. Because, Ohio State football quarterbacks just are not good in the NFL.
So we've got a lot of stuff to get to. GM big board update, offensive philosophy conversation. NFL playoffs are here. We know the AFC Championship game could be played in Atlanta. Should that happen, Buffalo, of course, and/or Cincinnati versus Kansas City. That's going to be played in Atlanta. I volunteered Nashville. I thought Nashville was a great spot for that.
I don't want to hear.
You don't want to hear? You don't want an AFC Championship game here?
What's the point? Titans are going to be like, I care where it's at.
I don't know.
And then it's just going to clog up everything. It could be a disaster.
I'm selfish.
Nashville's infrastructure cannot handle last-minute events.
Man, this giant thunderstorm that's about to roll through Nashville is like really changing my lighting in the room right now.
Yeah, it is dark.
It's going to be bad. So if we experience any technical difficulties, it's not our fault. It's God's fault. Blame him. Okay. So before we get into any of that, of course, a football show is brought to you by who, Zach? Tell everybody who the football show is brought to. A football show.
And just throwing it to me without telling.
Come on.
The Kingston Group, buildkg.com, and of course, the pharmacy. Braden says there's a dry January thing going on, and I just want to let you all know that I think dry January is stupid. The premise is stupid. You can get healthy, you can get fit without depriving yourself the joy of a big, juicy Bayou burger. Deprive you of the joy. You can still get your abs and without up big cold stein of beer from Pharmacy Burger. You want tater tots? Well, guess what? Just do some crunches and then go get you some fucking tater tots. Also with the best mustard in Nashville.
I would like everyone to know that not only did I just toss that ad read to Zach with no preparation, but I'm pretty sure he found out about dry January about 6 minutes ago when I told him about this stupid dry January thing that's happening, which, again, I don't understand. I don't understand dry any month because, again, let's be fair. We want you to go eat at pharmacy as much as possible, but is it reasonable to go to eat at any restaurant every day of the week? No, it's not reasonable to ask anyone to do that. But once a week to go to pharmacy to get yourself a big old juicy burger and a tall beer and some tots or a brat or whatever, like that's called moderation, Zach.
If that's gonna wreck that one meal is gonna wreck your body, you got bigger concerns.
Right. Exactly.
You need to go see a doctor.
If after 4 hours you need another pharmacy burger, go talk to your doctor about that. So check out Pharmacy, of course, East Nashville, McFerrin Avenue. There you have it. They got really cool gear, actually. If you like the purple and green stuff, they got really good. They got good
Joker colors.
They got good swag over there. Great ambiance, great atmosphere, great. They got the soda rail, they got the milkshake bar and everything. It's great for kids. So it's a great place to go eat, and it won't destroy your diet once a week. It's totally fine. So go check it out. Kingston Group, of course, as you mentioned, buildkg.com is the website. Don't make any big decisions about your house before you talk to the Kingston Group. I got some friends who are like doing an entire kitchen renovation and some bathroom renovations, and they're like, who should I call? And I'm like, duh, freaking Kingston Group. Go talk to them. They'll give you a great lineup of what to expect. If it works out, they'll hit every single mark. They'll hit the budget. They'll do exactly as they promised. They've got an in-house design team. They're award-winning. They're locally owned. And if it doesn't work out, then they're going to steer you in the right direction to help you make better decisions about your house. So they're going to help you no matter what, whether they get your business or not. So go check them out. Buildkg.com is the website. Pharmacy and Kingston Group, two locally owned sponsors of a football show. Zach, do you want to tease anything? Make sure you follow Zach on Twitter. How about this?
Just follow
Zach on Twitter.
I know I was going to say on Monday I was going to make a big announcement on the show, but I've decided to do something a little bit different with my announcement. Just turn on my notifications for @FWordsPod, and you're going to get an announcement later this afternoon, and you'll get another important piece of information tomorrow.
There you go. And we've got some stuff coming from.
Is there anything else you're going to surprisingly spring up on me?
No, I didn't tell you to. I was just going to say turn on his notifications because not only does he deliver awesome capology and defensive back coach breakdowns and DVOA passing metrics and just awesome stuff.
That was the one I was forgetting off that tweet was DVOA.
DVOA.
I'm forgetting one. And I switched to PFF grade because I couldn't remember what it was.
So you get great stuff anyway, but might be some extra stuff coming this week on the F Words Pod Twitter account, of course, and at 440 Sports. Please turn that on as well. We'll get to the show here momentarily. We're only 10 minutes in. Okay. Offensive philosophy. And I know you guys talked about some candidates on football and other F words, but I just like you to sort of concisely to explain to our listeners some of the philosophical things that you believe in that this Titans offense should evolve into that Todd Downing did not deliver or, whatever, previous personnel did not deliver. What is it that you want this offense to do specifically so that it is a modernized 2023 NFL offense?
To put it succinctly, just hire a good offensive coordinator. Because really, there's nothing wrong with the scheme and the philosophy, technically, that they have been trying to employ under Todd Downing, because it's the same scheme and philosophy to its core as Sean McVay, as Kyle Shanahan, as Arthur Smith. It just was ran piss poorly by a guy who's not really from that tree, who's not really from that school of thought. And he's obviously is not capable of running the scheme and getting it employed and all that, because his team is built around this scheme. Now, you can make the argument, and Mike has, that, well, you're redoing the offensive line anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe NPF is benefits in his second year in more of a gap approach, run style offense. But here's the thing to me is that it doesn't have to go away from a run first philosophy, because if you really look at it, San Francisco is a run first philosophy.
For sure.
And the difference is that they have playmakers and that are fast and physical, and that's what Mike Vrabel wants, and that's what Mike Vrabel will get.
So I'm curious what you value in terms of like what a candidate brings to the table, because right now, like, we're gonna know when the Titans get a chance to interview these guys. You have to put in a request to interview somebody, and we kind of find out. So like, there's no real actual candidate list that's genuinely, like, honestly out there. No one's reported so-and-so is interested in the job, or so-and-so is going to be interviewed. Like, that hasn't been reported yet. So basically, we're kind of speculating on which candidates we might like, for example, which is totally fine. We can do that. But I'm more interested in sort of what are the things that we value if we're trying to make the team better. And I'm curious to get your perspective on this. Do you value the schematic design versus the innate ability to call the right thing at the right time? Ideally, you find a person that does both. But
right, most offensive coordinators can do both. Todd Downing just didn't either. I would think that you need someone maybe less of a feel for the game, depending on Mike Vrabel's, I guess, power. I guess it's hard for me to say, because we've heard that Mike Vrabel has essentially said, well, I'm the last guy that approves the play. So I guess it's not really, do they have a feel for when they should run, when they should pass, when blah, blah, blah. It's the actual play that they call is more important than the sequencing, I guess you'd say. Now, Todd Downing just was flat out bad. Now, but genuinely, most guys that you're going to hire are going to come from a school of thought that they are able to do both. And there's a lot of prime candidates out there that do both. I don't think you're looking at a situation where right now, okay, so there is, I believe, 4 teams that are in need of offensive coordinators and 3 of those teams have had coaches in place. And that's the Jets, the Titans, and the Commanders, right? Well, the Jets just fired Mike LaFleur, and because they said they're disappointed in how he's, developed Zach Wilson. Well, just don't draft Zach Wilson.
I was going to say, isn't that more of a, that feels like somewhat of a scapegoat
That's
firing.
scapegoating right there. And now Jets fans, they think that Mike LaFleur is the problem, because again, they think that the offensive coordinator is solely responsible for the progress a rookie quarterback can make. Well, yes and no. I kind of differ on that than most people. I think I side that it's about the quarterback coming in early, putting in the work, being with the quarterback coach, and then running and making sure the offensive coordinators to make sure that he has plays designed where Zach Wilson can succeed. He did that part. For Zach Wilson. So,
yeah,
I'll say this. Mike LaFleur, when it was announced that he was leaving, is because that he got a lot of interest from other teams. Well, unless a lot of playoff teams are going to be firing their offensive coordinator, then the only ones with head coaches are Mike Vrabel and Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
So you got to think that these are the teams. They're among the teams that have contacted the Jets, and Mike LaFleur makes sense for this Tennessee Titans team.
Sure. So let me give you an example of somebody that I think would be elite at one, and I'm not sure about the other. So I talked to a lot of coordinators in college football when Mike Leach passed away about trying to learn who is given the credit amongst coaches, who is given the credit for taking the air raid offense and evolving it into the NFL version, right? Which involves balance, power rushing, the stuff that truly Lincoln Riley's doing at USC right now. And it's all the stuff that is extremely popular in the NFL, which is the spread air raid elements, but mixed with sort of the traditional running attack that you kind of have to have situationally, whether it's bad weather, whether it's short yardage, whether it's goal line, whatever. Like, you can't, part of the reason Leach could never get his system to be perfect was that he just refused to evolve. And the number one name that came up across almost everybody I spoke with, that who gets credit for evolving it, is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury gets credit from most of the coaches that I talk to about saying, all right, here's Leach's great philosophies. How do we make it more like normal football? How do we make it more a thing that we can implement more routinely on the higher levels? And so I think Kingsbury could come in, and if I'm Nick Saban and an Alabama fan, as you've already said, like, pay that man as much money as possible to come be the next offensive coordinator. To me, there's no question about his design. There's no question about the creation of the scheme and the implementation of the scheme. I'm not 100% sold on him knowing exactly when to deploy those plays, but that is a philosophy that I think would be extremely valuable, at least that half of the equation.
I think if he's solely a play caller, you would see an uptick in what he's able to do. You get what I'm saying? Because when you're head coach and play caller, I don't think that's his forte. I think that's something he cannot do. But if he's solely an offensive coordinator, and then Mike Vrabel's handling everything else, I think you're going to be all right.
How many head coaches are play callers in the NFL?
You're asking, and I would just be guessing like 5 or 6.
There's
probably.
only one. So there's only one that's one. Like the last guy who did it in college to win a national title was Jimbo Fisher, and that was a decade ago.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, you trim the sails a little bit on the job description, and it's
have
easier
to be
succeed.
an elite head coach to be able to do both,
right.
and he is not an elite head coach. And that's just what it is. It has nothing to do with him being a coordinator. There are elite coordinators that cannot be a head coach. I don't have faith in Dan Quinn round 2 that could possibly happen. But Dan Quinn is an elite defensive coordinator. Mike Zimmer was an elite defensive coordinator that was a shitty head coach. On the flip side was Norv Turner, elite offensive coordinator, horrible head coach. To me, it's okay. Now, bringing in Cliff Kingsbury is changing everything. It is an extreme, drastic change from anything the Tennessee Titans have seen. And I don't know if you have the personnel to handle that. And that is the problem with going to the extreme. That's like Sean McVay, the Shanahan system's kind of in the middle, right? It's like it's got the best of the passing, it's got the best of running, but it's right in the middle. And if you're going to go to Cliff Kingsbury, you're going like way down away from what is possible by this team.
So let's go down that path then. How important is it for this person, whoever it is decided, because you got a new GM coming in? We don't know the future of the quarterback situation. It is not necessarily Ryan Tannehill long-term. It might be Ryan Tannehill for a year or two, but like, how important is it for someone like, how important is it for it to be exactly the way it is, or close to the way it is, or just a step away from, like, I would argue that I would be okay with it being an out and left field type of hire that does come in to try to completely change some things. I can also argue it's good to be like, a known commodity that makes the adjustments a little easier. And like Joe Brady is a fascinating name to me because I think he can do both things very well. And I don't think his offenses are all that.
I don't get this Joe Brady hype. I mean, he sucked at Carolina, and I know he was good in college, but college is just entirely different than NFL.
No, it is, but I just mean I don't necessarily mean he's the guy I want. I just mean schematically, he's not as big a swing as Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, right? Not a big swing in philosophy.
Right.
The idea that people have is that they're too run dependent. Like I said, they're not more run dependent than the exciting team of San Francisco or what the Rams technically. Well, the Rams a couple of years ago were a little bit more. There's a lot of running teams that pass really well and have creative play designs. I mean, you look at Detroit, you look at Green Bay.
Yeah.
You look at these teams. It's all about your personnel. So if you go to Cliff Kingsbury, go to this extreme, what faith do you have that Ryan Tannehill can execute that? Like,
well, and that's my question: is how much should the personnel dictate?
I think the GM
decision?
Dictates the most. And I think that if you're bringing in, let's say, Rand Carthen or Ian Cunningham, you're going to see something a little bit kind of like what we've already been seeing, but more Arthur Smith-esque, I guess I should say. Because, I mean, just Todd Downing, essentially what this team has done over the last 1.5 to 2 years is basically shift from we have all these pass catchers and we can move the ball through the air to, well, shit, our best player is Derrick Henry, and that's all we got. And it's not that Derrick Henry, at this point, if you're going to bring in, and if speed is the focus, right? If speed is the focus, speed and physicality, and you're bringing in Rand Carthon of the 49ers and let's say Mike LaFleur of the Jets, then Derrick Henry's got to go. I see very little opportunity for Derrick Henry on this team anyway. But if you need speed, you need someone like Raheem Mostert, like Elijah Mitchell, Matt Breida, Christian McCaffrey, these guys that are fast, but also Jeff Wilson is another one, but also can make people get punished for trying to tackle them. Derrick Henry's just not fast anymore.
No, and I agree with that. Well, or at least it takes him a while to get
and
there.
If you go to Cliff Kingsbury, goodbye Derrick Henry, because what good is he?
And that's sort of what my question is how like it feels like there's so many big decisions coming, which we all know what they are, about players in particular, that and again, I think Jason says this, the scheme has to evolve out of a run dependency. There's no point in getting faster if they're not going to be designed for speed, which is what you just said. So what I find interesting is, like, there's so many moving parts here that I find it almost impossible to pin down a specific direction that they want to go unless it is almost exclusively Mike Vrabel's view of the future. And to me, I don't know how that includes like any of this stuff. I don't know how it includes Derrick Henry. I don't know how it includes Ryan Tannehill. I don't know how you pick a guy, put him in place, and then have a general manager draft players for that system, although the job of the coaches is to fit the system around the players. I find this, like, there has to be some order of operations here. And I find
it's get your GM. You and your GM decide what you're doing with Tannehill and Derrick Henry. You don't have to let anybody know at this point. And you don't have to make cuts. And then once you decide there, then you hire your offensive coordinator. And then once you hire your offensive coordinator, you hire your offensive line coach. That is the order of how you have to do things in the particular situation that they're in, because this is the situation that they have found themselves in.
And in theory, couldn't that happen? Let's say, again, they're going to interview Ian Cunningham over the weekend, Rand Carthon over the
They have, starting today, they have 5 interviews lined up for GM.
So, which is Rand Carthon, Quentin Harris, Ian Cunningham,
Ryan Cowden, and Monty Austin Ford.
Yeah, the inside guys, which I guess that counts, but whatever.
Well, those are the 5 they have scheduled for today.
So I think
2 today, Rand Carthon on Friday, Ian Cunningham and Quentin Harris on Saturday.
Gotcha.
And let me say this. They have interviewed Rand Carthon, Ian Cunningham, and Quentin Harris previously at a mixer, and all 3 of these guys were at both in May at I guess a mixer is probably the wrong word. So the owners there were 2 owners meetings in May and December. And I've said on this show a couple of weeks ago in the early December, I said, Amy, after she fired J-Rob, there was specifically one owners meeting for a couple of days, and minority candidates were going to be there, and she was going to get a head start on everything. And sure enough, what did the reports say? Connecting the dots, boom. Yeah. She's talked to everybody, one of these guys, for a couple of days now, even before having these official interviews. So this is almost like second round for Rand Carthon, Ian Cunningham, and Quentin Harris.
And then, of course, there's going to be another round when they get it down to probably 2 or 3 finalists.
Possibly.
Whatever,
so. I mean, it's only 5. Do you have to have a second round? Unless it's really close between 2 people.
Maybe you're right. I would assume that you'd probably want a double interview, a second round. They also got rid of course, Keith Carter, the offensive line coach, Anthony Midget, the defensive backs coach, and Eric Frazier, who's on the staff as well. So they made 4 coaching changes. And I thought it was interesting. So I guess to finish up the order of operations, because we're going to get to some GM stuff here in a second, but couldn't you do all of this? Let's say they do the interview Friday, Saturday, whatever. They do the second interview next week between the 2 guys on, I'm making this up, Tuesday. And they decide between the 2, they offer the job, and the job is accepted. So let's say late next week, hypothetically, is it really out of the question that Mike Vrabel and new GM XYZ have already started having or made a decision about the quarterback situation?
Well, I'm sure it's all involved in the discussions. You know, you're a GM. You don't what happens in your GM interview? For those who may not know, you bring in your plan. And here's what I would do. And then they ask you questions about your plan. Then they ask you questions about the players. And I'm sure Vrabel quizzes them. I'm sure Amy Adams Strunk quizzes them on different things that they are wanting to have. But the GM that's coming in pretty much has probably an 80% good idea of what he's going to do with Ryan Tannehill and some of these players, right? I mean, you got to come in and meet them, but you have a good idea. And there's a report that just came out by Ian Rappaport saying Jets owner Woody Johnson is willing to spend for a veteran quarterback. There you go. I mean, we've been talking about Tannehill's fit for the Jets and how much better he would have made that team if he was over there. Now Mike LaFleur's gone. So what system are they going to use?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to a Jets guy who works at ESPN, and I was like, don't be shocked if the Jets come after Ryan Tannehill. And he was like, what are you talking about? He's not better. And I was like, Ryan Tannehill is significantly better than anything you had this year. Don't worry about it. Like, I just don't think people watch a lot of Titans games outside of Nashville sometimes. So it seems like I'm with you on the order of operations. What did you make of the of the other names on the coaching staff that were moved? I found Keith Carter to be fascinating because, by and large, while there was some initial friction, by the end of his first few seasons, almost every player had gotten better and was playing their best football under Keith Carter. That certainly was not the case this year. And then, of course, Taylor
wasn't
Lewan,
really the case last year either.
And Lewan has the comments about how practice on the offensive line was so much harder, and they didn't really take it easy on us.
Wuss.
Well, and I'm just
spare me this Taylor Lewan bullshit. You know, did you hear what he said about he thinks it's it's good to be patted on the back, when you mess up on a play.
Well,
he's like, sometimes that's what he says. Sometimes it's better, for guys if you pat them on the back after a bad play. Listen, if you have to pat someone on the back after a bad play, they're not cut out for fucking football. Like, give me a break. Get out of here.
Well, while I think I agree with you in general, I also think there's lots of different ways to motivate. I mean, the reason TCU's in the national championship game is because he's not a huge asshole like Gary Patterson. So I think there's many different, and you're a big leadership guy, so there's lots of different ways to get the most out of somebody.
That's why Taylor Lewan's not a leader.
We all respond differently to different styles of leadership and different methodologies of motivation and everything. So I don't really care about any of that stuff. But if what he said about practice is true, which is that the offensive line practices were extremely difficult and it was too hard to recover from whatever injury, like that could absolutely be an indicator of why there's been so many injuries in one group, at least. I just don't. I mean, the secondary didn't exactly. Christian Fulton got worse.
They were the two worst units on the team.
Yeah.
And they've been pretty bad for the last 2 years. They were the most penalized units on the team, 1 and 2, and they were the 1 and 2 position units that had the worst technique week in and week out.
So
you just get fired when you suck at your job. Like, just what it is. I mean, they sucked at their job. Like, I was a little shocked that Keith Carter was gone, but at the end of the day, I understand it. It's kind of like John Robinson. I was shocked, but I understand it. Right. Anthony Midget, I'm not shocked at all. That guy's got to go. And the guy that they're looking at to interview first, if that's a sign of things to come, that they're going to go after basically some of the best defensive back coaches in the league and offer them just the passing game coordinator title, so it's legal because you can't make a lateral move. You can only make a promotion, so that makes it a promotion. Then fuck yeah, I mean, do it. Like that's to me is the way that they have not been attacking the staff in enough ways and getting creative and trying to lure people away.
Well, on a scale of like quarter chub to like fully aroused, what are the 3 offensive coordinator names that would make you just fully aroused? Like if all of a sudden, like you know that these are the 3 finalists and they're interviewing all 3 of them and you're just ecstatic about any of them. Who are the names that you want to see?
These are the 3 finalists that I love the most, or that could potentially be here. I like Eric Bieniemy. I like Thomas Brown, who's getting an interviewing head coaching job from the Texans coming up.
Yeah.
And I would say that I would still put Mike LaFleur there. I think Cliff Kingsbury is kind of like 3 and 4, somewhere around there. I got to see what the GM does, but I'm okay with anybody from like San Francisco. I'm okay with keeping the same system. I know people are not excited about the system and all this stuff, but the system works. We see it work and we see it look exciting. We've seen it look exciting here. They just got to get the players that can execute it and get a play caller in that can teach it, install it, and run it.
It's also easiest to stay competitive by not taking a drastic swing at all of this, especially if the next 2 years you could call transitionary years where you're transitioning away from Henry, away from Lewan, away from Tannehill, away from a lot of major pieces that this offense has been built around for a long time. I wonder about the Bieniemy stuff because there's like a reason. Like I'm with everybody who says, listen, this guy should have had a job a long time ago. He's obviously very talented. He's learned at the feet of maybe the best offensive mind of our era. But there's got to be something about why he's hasn't gotten a job. It just seems awfully
No,
odd.
you're not hiring him for head coach. You're hiring him for offensive coordinator.
No, I know, and maybe that's all you need.
Yeah.
So
Don't overthink it. When I tell people, the most logical conclusion or the most logical reason is the most logical conclusion, and so don't overthink it. Who cares if he didn't get hired as head coach? He's an offensive coordinator. Hire him as offensive coordinator.
Bill O'Brien would not excite me. Not at
No,
all.
Bill O'Brien and Tim Kelly would not excite me, but if I had to choose between the two, I'm choosing Bill O'Brien. I do not. I'm out on Tim Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm out on Tim Kelly. I mean, they had plenty of time to fire Todd Downing and promote Tim Kelly. They didn't, and at that point, I'm just good.
So you're pro Mike LaFleur. You think that's
Yeah, I think that this whole situation in the Jets and the is Woody Johnson driven. It's ownership driven, and because they're even talking about firing the quarterback coach as well, because Woody Johnson got saddled with or wanted the shittiest fucking quarterback in that draft.
Pep Hamilton?
Nah, I'm out.
Okay. Who's the guy from is it Godsey from Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm good.
That knows very well. Like there's always a couple
Getsy,
names on these.
I think is his name. I mean,
yeah.
I'm okay with that. Learning on Greg Roman. I mean, I just, at this point, I think like Zach Robinson from the Rams would be another one. There's position coaches at other places that you really don't know what they're going to bring to the table. Mike brought up the offensive line coach for the Bears, the quarterback coach of the Eagles. Stuff like that is where I would get more excited than some retread hire. That's to me, it's like spot number 3 is someone new that we just didn't know was going to be on the table.
Yep, and that's the direction I like for both GM and for offensive coordinators.
Well, that's what GM's trending to. I mean, GM is trending. I mean, look, like I said, look at the names. Okay, I know we got Ryan Cowden, Monty Ossenfort. That's just probably doing them some little bit of good PR. Maybe get some other teams calling them and all that kind of stuff. Then the next one, then you have on Friday, you have Rand Carthen of the San Francisco 49ers. Big approval from me on that one. Ian Cunningham on Saturday. Super excited for Ian Cunningham. I think he's my number one choice now that Adam Peters is gone. And then you got on the after that, you have
Malik Boyd, right?
No, Quentin Harris.
Okay, VP of Player Personnel for Arizona. Okay.
Yeah, I'm out on him. You
out on him?
No,
you were very high on him on Monday.
I just said his name. I thought that he was going to be good, but the more research I've done, because it was just announced while we're on air.
Right.
So my initial reaction is knowing that Adrian Wilson and Quentin Harris were both highly thought of for their position, the vacant position at the Cardinals. You go and dive down and hear what fans say and everything like that. They are sick and tired of hiring from within. And Quentin Harris and Adrian Wilson have only learned under Steve Keim. That's not good. Get you a guy that knows that's worked under a bunch of different people.
Okay. And I agree with both you and Mike on Football and Other F Words saying I want people that have experience scouting on both sides of the coin, college and pro, experience managing an entire department. Like you want analytics and a little bit of eye test too. You kind of want somebody that's versatile that has experience doing it all. So of these names, you said Ian Cunningham is the name. The assistant general manager for the Chicago Bears is at the top of your list. Do we need are we moving on now to the big board update? And should I tell everybody about our wonderful and amazing sponsors at this point? Or are we ready to move on?
I'm just saying Ian Cunningham, Rand Carthen, and then Glenn Cook of the Cleveland Browns are the choices that I want, and Malik Boyd as well. But those 4, those are who you want if you're the Tennessee Titans. Kick everybody else to the curb.
So Boyd, senior director, pro personnel for Buffalo. We've talked a lot about Carthon. Glenn Cook, assistant GM, VP of player personnel for Cleveland. And it sounds like Ian Cunningham is your number one choice right now. So they'll be talking to these guys over the course of the next few days. And then, of course, we'll probably get another round of maybe 2 names, maybe 3 names, or maybe they don't tell us at all because they don't want us to know like exactly who the 2 finalists are or whatever. It does feel like that all the internal candidates are out. That all
it should be
for every job, for all the job, for the coaching jobs, for the GM job, that they're going to go try to bring in some fresh eyes to look at this thing from a fresh perspective. And I do think that's the right strategy.
Yes.
So there you go. Look at that. We agree. Look at that on a football show. All right. That's it for the GM and the offense and the coordinators. I think we're good on that. We're going to playoffs here. You want to talk some playoffs? Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get into this real fast, reminder, Kingston Group Pharmacy, two great, amazing local sponsors. Make sure you check them out, buildkg.com. And, of course, the pharmacy over there on McFerrin Avenue in East Asheville. They also have a location downtown. But if you're looking for a burger or a home renovation company, two things that obviously go hand in hand, make sure you check out the Kingston Group and make sure you check out the pharmacy. I have a couple of games that I really am interested in, and I have is it weird for me to think that this could be one of the most boring wild card weekends? Like, I just feel like there's so many blowout potential here.
Yeah, I think the only true underdogs that could possibly win the game, or I guess the favorites that could possibly lose the game, is really the Vikings. And I mean, there's a good chance that they're going to lose, and I think the Chargers could upset the Jaguars.
Well, Chargers are a 2-point favorite. Last time I checked, and Dallas is a 2.5-point favorite. They could lose. They can't ever win a playoff game.
Yeah.
So there's like, it's what it seems like is that there's like three good ones, and then I don't know. I don't see any chance that Buffalo, Cincinnati, or San Francisco get beat in this. And I think that it kind of makes for a bummer of a first weekend. So I do like the Chargers Jags game on a Saturday night. Here's a stat for you, because I know I'm gonna do this every single time we do a show, because I know you hate Trevor Lawrence so much with the passion. Trevor Lawrence has never lost a football game in his entire life, high school, college, or pro, on a Saturday night. On a Saturday. It's never happened. He never lost the college game on Saturday. He never lost the high school game on Saturday. Not sure how many he played. And he's never lost an NFL game on Saturday. I find that to be fascinating.
Yeah, it's quite possibly the most fascinating, meaningless stat I've ever heard.
Hey, he won a division championship on a Saturday last week. He won a bunch of college games on Saturdays. I think the only loss he had was on a Monday night, I think, against Joe Burrow. So their play on Saturday night. I just find those two teams to be potentially the hottest teams in going in as the non-elite teams, right? Like the non-favorites. I think the winner of that Jacksonville and Chargers game could be very dangerous down the road. I don't know. That's all. They'll play at Kansas City, of course.
And they'll both lose in the second round. It's just,
well, who's this year's Cincinnati in your mind?
I don't think there is a Cincinnati. That's a fluke run. That happens like every 5 or 6 or 7 years. I mean, it's the last Cincinnati was the New York Giants.
No, we've had a bunch of wild card teams win Super Bowls since the Giants. Well, the Packers won it in 10. You had the Steelers win it. You had
the Giants were after the Packers.
Giants was 07. Oh, you're saying because
yeah.
So 07 and 11.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think that wild cards make deeper runs. I mean,
make deep runs, but if you're asking who's the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl. There's nobody that's making it to the Super Bowl out of this group. It's the Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. That's my Super Bowl pick, and I'm rooting for the San Francisco 49ers.
God, wouldn't that be a hell of a story? It's like Nick Foles all over again.
Well, Jimmy G could be back at any moment.
That's true. Either way, that's still technically Nick Foles, right? I mean, their roster is the best. I put money on the Niners to win the Super Bowl back in like August, and it's like they're the best. They're the best team.
Oh yeah,
they're the best team. They just may not have the quarterback to do it if and when that happens. Tom Brady in Dallas. Who do you like?
I think I'm just gonna go Dallas.
I like that. I'm with you on Minnesota getting upset. I can't believe how good a job Ryan Daboll has done. Is anybody? You said Chiefs over Bills?
I will say this: maybe the Eagles or Cowboys, who are wild cards, could be this year's Bengals. The Eagles, Giants and Cowboys. Giants and Cowboys could be this year's Bengals.
Okay. The Cowboys have the talent, but they don't have a coach that can do it.
He won the Super Bowl with
I know.
He won your Packers Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that you just brought up a few minutes ago talking about it.
Mike McCarthy will do something to screw it up. I'm going Buffalo over the Niners because no one's beating Buffalo, unfortunately.
The Chiefs probably will.
I just can't.
Famous last words.
All right, that's it. I guess that's our entire NFL playoff preview. Are you just not that fired up for it, or what's the deal?
Well, I mean, it's just the wild card weekend's just not where it's at, and the wild card weekend can be fun. Like, you're going to get your Nickelodeon games, which would be pretty cool. And, those are always great. But there's just a bunch of teams that I just know. It just feels very predictable this year. I think the NFC is less predictable than AFC. The AFC is going to be the Bills and the Chiefs. And there you go. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Maybe the Bengals can do something because if they get the Chiefs, the Chiefs kind of have a bugaboo about them with the Bengals. But other than that, I think it's going to be Bills and Chiefs. in the Eagles team, I just don't know. I just believe so much in San Francisco. Like I am a San Francisco fan. I have been since the losing streak. Basically, like what was I would say I'm a San Francisco fan after probably 3 games into the losing streak. I was like out on the Titans. I'm like, I'm watching San Francisco because it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, there's not I will say, I will totally agree with you on this. And as a Packers fan who has had his heart ripped out of his chest by Kyle Shanahan literally almost every year, like other than watching them in that game, there's not an offense that I would like take an appointment viewing to watch and sit down and appreciate and enjoy and like study pre-snap than I do with San Francisco. And I mean, Baltimore a couple years ago, but that was a little different. But like this Niners team is just like the weaponry, the versatility, the way they get deployed, the way they move them around before the snap. Like the whole thing is just it's like an orchestra, and it's unlike anything else. And if they just get good quarterback play, like nobody will be. I don't know if anybody's going to beat them. So, how about this question? Who should be MVP? Because I think Mahomes is going to win it.
Mahomes should be MVP
over Hurts or anybody else.
Yeah, there's nobody even close.
I don't know. Hurts has got a pretty good case.
Let me say this: you put Hurts on Patrick Mahomes' team, then we'll talk.
Listen, I think Patrick Mahomes is better.
Hurts doesn't have a case in my mind.
Okay.
I mean, Hurts has one of the best offensive lines and has the better pass catching unit and probably has the better running back as well and had a really easy schedule. Patrick Mahomes had to go through hell over in the AFC. He had 2 Dennis Dailies on his offensive line.
That's hard to do.
And still went crazy without having Tyreek Hill. All he had was Travis Kelce, and he's getting stuff done with a guy named Justin Watson. You trying to tell me that Jalen Hurts could do anything that Justin Watson has done? If Jalen Hurts wasn't a good runner, he would not be in the conversation because he's
but that's a skill.
But my thing is that he's a quarterback. If you want Offensive Player of the Year, give it to Jalen Hurts. If you're a quarterback, you got to be able to throw the ball, and the most valuable person to their team's success is easily Patrick Mahomes.
I don't necessarily disagree with what your ultimate argument is, which is that Mahomes is, like I said at the beginning, I think he's going to win it. The Eagles went 0-2 without Hurts. I agree, but you don't. It doesn't say why you're about. It's not the running or the throwing is not relevant in this conversation. It's irrelevant to being valuable to your team. It's
what I'm saying is it's hiding the fact that he's a horrible quarterback.
Wow, horrible quarterback. Okay, all right.
Let me tell you something about this Jalen Hurts situation is that what they've done is take advantage, and this is the smart move by the Eagles because they were going to cut him. Like they do not like Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts looked horrible last year. And now he's got a great offensive line. He has great weapons all around him. His supporting cast is massive, and now he takes this big leap, and everybody's like, well, it's obviously Jalen Hurts did everything. No, everything around him went great. And I know that Gardner Minshew came in and they lost, but he also looked good in the one game. And I'm telling you, if you had Gardner Minshew the whole year, yeah, maybe they're not 13-3, but they're still probably in the playoffs as a wild card spot. If you take Patrick Mahomes away from the Chiefs, you're dead in the fucking water.
I don't disagree with you. I think Mahomes is deserving.
And there is no case. So let's just both agree there is no case for Jalen. There's no credible case for Jalen Hurts.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I think it's I think Mahomes is going to win. He also is coaching, and he's got probably the best offensive mind on the planet running his offense. So that's there too. Just don't discount the Andy Reid factor on this as well. But I think you're right. I think Mahomes is going to win it. So, all right, let's get into some Georgia stuff. I know you were complaining about chicken wings. Is that what was happening?
Well, I'm not. I don't care about. I'm not. I was going to talk it, but you're misconstruing my words here. I think it's hilarious and awesome that UGA dominated TCU so bad that the starters got hungry and they were like, well, I'm just going to go fucking over here and eat because we're not going back into the game. I think that is awesome. They're eating chicken wings. I think they had some sandwiches. Good for them.
Curtain calls the entire fourth quarter.
It is great. It's awesome. It was magnificent. However, this idea that essentially that they had been underestimated all year, and that people predicted they were going to go 6-6 or 7-5 or whatever, and all this stuff. Like they were this like lost cause that people thought they were a lost cause. Fuck you. That is ridiculous, asinine shit. And for it to come from the head coach and to come from the players is just horse shit.
I would say so. Personally, I agree with you. However, it worked because they went 15-0 and they defended their champion.
If that was their motivate, that's false motivation. And I think what it was, I don't think it was even motivation. I don't think that was a motivating factor. This is them trying to pump their chests after the game and try to act like it was them against the world.
That's the rat poison, man. Like that's what their job is. When it's 18 to 22-year-old kids, it's about motivation. And he started it.
They were motivated that way. I think that they came up with this after the fact out of their ass.
Oh no. Kirby Smart said it on his very first sentence at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. He said, "This is a new team, and we are going hunting." Then they were picked third in the nation. They were the number 3 preseason team. And I think on this show, I said Georgia is underrated. They're actually underrated. But again, being third in the nation, how can you actually be underrated? 29-1 over 2 years, unprecedented. It's never been done before. And if I'm a Georgia fan or a fan of any football team, I don't give a shit how they get motivated. I don't care what garbage you have to spew at the players to get them to find their next level. I don't care how it's done. If it's fabricated BS, I don't care. If it gets me to 15-0 and I get a second ring out of the deal, I don't care. Kirby Smart said every possible sentence he said this year was right then, because they've done something that no other team in college football history has ever done, which is 29-1 in 2 years, and they're back-to-back champs. And Stoney says he heard some idiot made a beer bet that Georgia would lose twice this season.
That was me. I made the beer bet.
I don't think this person was an idiot, Stoney. He just happened to be wrong this time, but it's okay. Georgia's significantly better than everybody else. I have Alabama at number 2 in my final poll, just like Saban. Do you think I'm like, does anybody care about postseason polls? Like, does anybody care?
No, but you're going to make us talk about SEC rankings. So what's the difference?
No, that's preseason polls. I want to talk preseason. I want to talk early season.
What you're saying is like, I forgot that college football does a stupid thing where it's like, oh, here's the end of the year rankings. Like, who gives a fucking shit?
It's a postseason AP poll, and people are like, I did 2 radio interviews today that were like, hey, do you have a problem with Nick Saban ranking Alabama 2? And I said, if you're a fan who gives a shit about a postseason AP poll, I can't help you. I got nothing. Now, I think it's interesting to discuss, if you want to have a real discussion about who do you think was the better football team this year, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, TCU, or Tennessee, those 5. I think you can make a case for all 5 of them to be better than the other 4. And I think that's an interesting kind of fun conversation.
They suck.
Except for who?
TCU. You get your ass blown out by Georgia like that. You're not a, and I'm not. What you said was you can make a case that all 5 of them. You can make a case that one of them is better than all 4. Well, TCU is not better than Alabama.
I agree with you. I've got Bama at 2.
So much like your Jalen Hurts thing, there is no case for TCU to be better than Alabama.
But they just beat Michigan. So Michigan only has 1 loss. Michigan destroyed Ohio State. Ohio State almost beat Georgia.
When you get Tennessee your butts blown out like that, you're a disgrace. And TCU could be ahead of Michigan, and that's about it.
Wait, Stoney says that it was him.
I think I agreed with him.
Okay. A key part of college coaching is ticketing is ticking your teams into. I think that's supposed to be tricking.
Tricking.
Tim. Come on, that Auburn education at work.
Yep.
A key part of college coaching is tricking your team into thinking no one respects them. I tend to agree with that. I just, as a nerd who loves college football, I just think Tennessee beats Alabama. Tennessee gets beat by Georgia. Georgia barely beats Ohio State, who gets their ass kicked by Michigan, who Michigan loses to TCU. Like it's a round and round and round, and I think all 5 of them are pretty even. I would have TCU and Tennessee at the bottom of that list. I would have Alabama at 2. That's what I would. I think Alabama was the second best team in college football, and people are telling me I'm crazy for that. And I
think Alabama at 2 is all right. If you're not first, you're last. So who gives a shit about that?
That's it. So now let's look. Pharmacy, of course, and Kingston Group are 2 great, wonderful, and amazing sponsors, locally owned and operated in Nashville for over a decade, I think, for both of them. 2011 for the pharmacy, of course. Go get yourself a burger. None of this dry January nonsense. Go get yourself a big old stein of beer and a burger. You don't have to go every single meal. Like you can still keep your diet and work out and then also enjoy a burger. It's called moderation. My preseason rankings, though, there's a couple of interesting things, though. Way too early, never too early. Top 25s that are out all over the place, right? Number 1 is Georgia. It's not close. They're number 1. I have Alabama at number 2 in the SEC, number 4 in the nation. I've got LSU at 5 in the nation and 3 in the SEC. And I think there is going to be a very healthy debate all offseason long about Bama versus LSU.
So let me ask you a question. Do you believe in Jaden Daniels that much?
The game is in Tuscaloosa also.
Yeah.
I have Alabama.
Do you believe
ahead.
in Jaden Daniels as that they are the third best team in the SEC with Jaden Daniels as their quarterback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't and this not to disrespect you Tennessee fans, I don't think there's another option.
Gotcha.
I think those three are ahead. I think those 3 are ahead of everybody else. LSU is going to be really good. They're going to be really good. The problem is the game's in Tuscaloosa. I think that's why I like Alabama, just to win that game. Jalen Milroe versus Ty Simpson are the 2 quarterbacks that are going to battle to replace Bryce Young, which should be interesting to watch. They actually could be better at wide receiver and running back and offensive line this year.
I don't know about running back, but at least at wide receiver, they'll have another year under everybody's belt. And then you got that, you got some people, that are coming in as well. So
yeah.
Their offensive line should be better too.
Offensive line should be better. So the 2 big issues with this team, which were offensive line and receiving core, both could be better this year. And then the defense has got a bunch of studs. They're replacing some safeties, and they got to replace Will Anderson, but they've got Dallas Turner and a whole lot of studs on there. They get Tennessee and LSU both at home this year instead of on the road, which were their 2 losses last year. I think Bama's clearly number 2. I think LSU, though, is clearly number 3. The issue is going to be Tennessee is going to take a big dip, I think. They're not a preseason top 10 team. I would have them at 4 in the SEC, but I would have them down at 15, 16, 17, 18 in the country. I just don't think you can take that level of elite talent away from every major position. Your best offensive lineman, your star quarterback, your best 2 receivers, your best pass rusher. I think it's hard to take that level of talent away from a team that has not yet recruited layers of 5 stars and expect them to still be as good.
I agree.
What's fascinating, though, is KJ Jefferson back at Arkansas, Spencer Rattler back at South Carolina, Will Rogers back at Mississippi State, Jackson Dart and Quinshad Junkins, I can't get his name right, at Ole Miss are back. Texas A&M hired Petrino, is going to be better. Auburn's got Hugh Freeze. They're going to be better. I mean, it's going to be – Kentucky went and got Devin Leary and a better coordinator. It is going to be fascinating after the top 3 in the SEC. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit closer than probably what it was last year, where there's more teams in that middle, because we talked about that last year. The middle was going crazy. I'm with you. Tennessee may – they may, come crashing back down, but I don't know, man. They just keep looking good, even regardless of all these losses and stuff. It's one of those things where it's kind of like every year you're expecting Tom Brady to suck and the Patriots to suck, and they can't possibly be better. I kind of feel like maybe we're in that zone with University of Tennessee.
Would 8-4 in your mind be a crash? You think? Would you define that as a crash?
Yeah, I would. I think that would be a crash, really? Especially among UT fans. They would absolutely hate going 8-4. I mean, they would not be. They would not, in their mind, be able to rationalize that.
I don't see how they beat Alabama on the road, and I don't see them beating Georgia at home. So that's 2 right there. All it takes is 1 more slip-up, and you're 9-3. 2 slip-ups, and you're 8-4. I still think that's a solid year. I don't think that's a quote-unquote crash, but I think Tennessee fans expecting to stay in the top 10 in the preseason should probably take a step back. That's all. I think
you're probably right.
I think they're solid. I don't think they're nearly as elite as Hendon freaking Hooker made them. You can't yell at me and say that Hendon Hooker's the greatest player in all of college football and then just take him away and be like, yeah, we're just as good.
Yeah.
You can't. It's one or the other. All right. Pharmacy, Kingston Group, buildkg.com, notifications. Turn on those notifications for the F Words Pod Twitter account at F Words Pod. Make sure you turn that on. And Tim says this, honestly, I don't think any SEC team beyond the top 3 should expect better than 9-3. And I think you're exactly right, Tim. I think you're exactly right. So should be a great offseason for the Titans and the SEC. We got the playoffs coming up. We got coaching searches and GM searches, and so we'll keep you up to date right here on 440 Sports, F-Words Pod. Of course, you got everything over at Broadway Sports Media, so make sure you check out all that great stuff as well. Kingston Group, BuildKG.com, and the pharmacy in East Nashville. We love you guys. Thanks for supporting us. Thank you guys for listening and hanging out. Zach, enjoy the weekend. I know you're not very excited about it, but enjoy the weekend of interviewing and awesome NFL football games.
I mean, I'll watch it.
So there you go. For Zach, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. This has been a football show.